All right, welcome. Welcome back. I had a little technical difficulties. This is the first time that I've done YouTube Live, and I'm glad that you have decided to join me. I am Keith Russell Lee. I am Spiritual Director and Senior Minister of the Destiny Center for Spiritual Empowerment. I am an expert in spiritual and personal growth and development. I'm an author. I've written 4 books. These are 3 of them. And in a minute, I want to share with you how you can be able to get these books, actually all of them, and that I have in print now. But I want to say welcome. And what I'm going to be sharing today is about how we overcome fear. This is going to be a blessing to you. So I want you to share this with people. I want you to be able to also give me some feedback and let me know that this is making a difference in your life. Okay. First of all, let me talk about fear. What is fear? I've discovered that fear is just simply a negative thought. And again, I'm talking not about fears from a clinical perspective, etc. I'm talking about, the basic fears that hold us back. They're all negative thoughts. Have you ever noticed something? That fear is actually just simply between our ears. There are these negative thoughts that we run in our mind over and over again that builds all of this anxiety and tension that paralyzes us from really moving forward to achieving those things. So I look at it as simply negative thinking that we play over and over again. And the reason why we do that is because that's the way that we have been taught. It's the human race consciousness. It's the universal trance that most people are trapped in because the world tells us, well, we should have fears and we should, consider all of these factors when in fact they are nothing but things which hinder and stop you. A lot of times I give this exercise in my seminars and in my workshops. I ask, if there was nothing holding you back, what would you do? Now, most people get really excited about it. They get psyched and they get jazzed and they get juiced about it. They begin taking out their journals and writing and writing and writing and writing. And I then ask, what is preventing you from achieving those things right now? They will then say, oh, I have this and I am dealing with that and I can't do. And it's all fear-based. I was talking to my daughter the other day. My daughter is a senior in college, and she is talking about her life and all the things that she wants to do. And we were talking, and I heard her not talking about her dreams as much as her student loans. And she was saying she had this student loan debt and how this was going to impact her paycheck in the future. And I share with her because she was at a school where she was going to come out of debt with $250,000 in debt. And she really has a very modest student loan debt that she decided to do a while back. And it's really a modest and a meager sum. We had a discussion about money and about our experiences in lives. But let me just simply basically characterize our conversation. It was fear-based. It was based upon all of these thoughts and these ideas that she has in her mind about what if, what if, what if. And isn't that precisely how we are about our lives? And we allow fear to overtake us. We allow these negative thoughts to overwhelm us. These thoughts that many people say is acceptable. But folks, anything that limits you and stops you from developing and growing and being all that you can be is not empowering. and it's limiting. So I want to talk about how you can overcome those things. Because if you had no fear and if you had a guarantee for success, there would be a lot of things that you'd be doing right now, right? You would be, you would write that best-selling book. You would be traveling across the world. You'll have that dream job. You would marry the right man or the right woman. You would not allow anything to stop you. And the only thing that's stopping you is fear. How do you overcome fear? The first thing that you do in overcoming fear is that you've got to eradicate all negativity and all doubt. Because the reality of the fact is that one doubt can take you out. One thought that's not empowering can just indeed wipe you out, get you off track, get you emotionally off kilter, anxious, and never going toward that which you desire and you deserve. So you've got to eradicate yourself. You've got to be able to create an environment that all that's in that environment are things which empower you, things that encourage you, things that enlighten you, things that keep you on the track in which you want to go. So therefore, you've got to look at your friends. You've got to look at people in your life that are influential in your life. Are they empowering or disempowering? Many years ago, my best friend shared with me a piece of wisdom that has gone and taken on new meaning as each year goes by. He says, Keith, if you spend 15 minutes with a person and you walk away from that person with nothing, you have just wasted your time. You should be drawing from individuals like yourself, things that are empowered, things that are enriching, things that are going to help you get to the next level. If you're just simply shooting the breeze and you're just simply having chitter chatter, at best, you are wasting your time. You just wasted 15 minutes. And many people in our lives, we are just simply wasting time. They're affirming the same old things that they want to affirm. They're talking about the same old things. And let me share this, folks. People at best, I was going to go a little bit deeper, but let me just share this, folks. It's important that you surround yourself with individuals that have like desires, of like dreams, of like values that build you up and not disempower you. Okay, that's important. The other aspect, as far as eradicating all negativity from your environment, is that you've got to look at the place where you live. What about the pictures on your wall? You know, people don't think about that. Your home right now, where you are, should be your sanctuary. Your home should be the place that you become energized by. Your home should be that place that inspires you. And so look at the pictures on your wall. Does the pictures on your wall inspire you? Do they build you toward a feeling of being confident, overcoming your fears, or are they pictures which consciously or subconsciously bring up fears? You know, I used to have this artwork on my wall, beautiful frame, a beautiful picture of a little young boy in poverty. Evidently was in poverty because of the way his clothes was and the background was, and he was like playing in the dirt. It's a beautiful picture, but I realized on a subconscious level, it was a picture of poverty. It was a picture that subconsciously was connecting me with an experience, first of all, I've never had, but an experience of which I did not want in my life. Are the pictures on your wall inspiring you to reach, to do, to have? You know, I think about the picture that we had in my home growing up in the living room. The living room, there was a picture of a major metropolitan city, all the skyscrapers and so forth and so on. And we also had a picture of Paris. And I realized that as time went on in all of my travels across the world, that that I played out that picture when I saw the Eiffel Tower and I climbed up and I, was all those things. I realized that my pictures in the home that I grew up in were programming me to travel, to see, to be, to do beyond living in Markham, Illinois. So I'm talking about eradicating all negativity, all the things that do not support where you want to be as you overcome your fears. Again, one doubt can take you out. So we talk about your environment, your home. What about the furnishings? What about the colors of the wall? All of these things impact us. How does it make you feel? See, because if I realize that if I've got to build myself up to overcome fear, I've got to eradicate all that negativity and I've got to build myself up. And my environment is so very important. This is one of the reasons why a lot of times that even in terms of in inner cities, like in Philadelphia, Chicago, New York, South Central LA and other places, people see the impact, if you will, of poverty. They see the impact and the pathology of poverty. And as a result of that, they continue to establish fears. So you walk down the street, you drive down the street, and what do you see? Bars on window. What does that raise? That raises, oh gosh, maybe I'm not safe. You drive down the street, you see people on the corner looking quote unquote shady. What does that bring forth? It brings forth insecurity. It brings forth a feeling I can't trust. These are things that continue to affirm fear. And that's one of the reasons why many times in inner cities, it is difficult for people to even break out of those cycles, because that's all that continues to affirm. But I'm going to talk about that one day of how we can overcome those things. But your environment plays such a very vital role. I share this. You may live in a hood, but you should have the best house on the block. You may live in the hood, but in terms of your home, the inside of your home, the colors on the wall, the furnishings, your bedding, all of those things should be the best and should inspire you, eradicating any negativity in terms of your life. So I've talked about people, I've talked about your environment. Let me now also go into your entertainment, because a lot of people don't realize that we are human sponges, and the subconscious mind is always open and available, and it's always bringing in information, be it if we're conscious of it or not, or cognizant of it or not. And what happens so often is that by our eye gate, our ear gate, we are allowing such negative things which affirm our fears into. So what do? We watch the same television shows, and we watch, and we read the same old things, and all of those things continue to affirm. And I'm telling you, if you are wanting to overcome fear, you've got to watch what you're looking at. You've got to watch and what you're listening to. I mean, some of the music, some of the things that people get into, man, I'm like, oh my gosh, really? Now, I'm not trying to make any judgments, but if that's where they are, that's where they are. But I'm talking about if you're really wanting to overcome your fears, you have to eradicate all negativity in your life. You've got to look at the people that you're around, the conversations that you're having. You've got to look at the environment in which you're in. And thirdly, you have to look at your entertainment of what you are engaging in, because all of that speaks to whether or not they're affirming your fears or not. Fear is really the opposite of faith, or on the flip side of faith on the coin. If faith was on one side, fear would be on the other side. And just like fear and faith, if you want to have faith, you've got to build up your faith. And how do you build up your faith? By eradicating fear. And first of all, as I say, it starts in those environments. It starts with you eradicating all negativity and doubt. The second way that we overcome our fears is to know who we are. And I'm talking about knowing who we are, not from the ego perspective. That's the psychological term. A theological term is called the flesh. Many of us are intimately aware of who we are from the perspective of the flesh or the perspective of the ego. What is that? The ego is the self-manufactured notion and idea of who we are. It is the way we've been socialized, the way that we have been indoctrinated, the way that we have been domesticated. And we have this idea because of our education, because of our family backgrounds. This is who I am. And as a result of that, we embrace or we inherit everything that everybody else has. And my friend, that's not who you are. You are not the ego. You are not the flesh. You are a spiritual being created and made in the likeness and in the image of God. You are divine. And when you embrace that, this is the basic foundation of how to overcome your fears. I'm talking about when you really know who you are as a spiritual being created, made in the likeness and the image of God, of knowing that you are a manifestation of God and the fullness of all that God is lives within you in his spirit. That's the basic foundation of overcoming your fears. But as long as I am trapped in the flesh, trapped into this ego notion and this idea, well, I'm only a human being. Well, I'm only, can do what I can do. I'm doing the best I can with the resources that I have. And I limit myself to what this human race consciousness has constructed. See, when we are divine, we realize that we are limitless. When we understand that we're spiritual beings, we realize that we look like and act like God. We realize that all that God is, we are. As I say in my book, The 14 Principles of Power, Faith, and Living. But we've got to get to that point of understanding who we are. See, that's why Paul wrote these words in saying that if God be for us, he's more than the world against us. I want you to hear that. If God be for us, he's more than the world against us. When I know who I am and God is for me, because God lives in me and moves in me and has his being in me, man, what can stop or block me? So think about it. I create an environment that eradicates all doubt, that eradicates all negativity. I then come into the awareness of who I am. There is nothing that can stop me or you when we walk in that truth. Now, what's the next step? Because Keith, okay, fine, I understand that. The next step is this. You've got to affirm it. First of all, let me talk about affirmation in this way. Faith cometh by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. I've got to build myself up in a positive, faith-inspired idea of who I am in the word. I've got to build myself up, and that is why scripture is so important. That's why the resources like the Destiny System, a spiritual guide to creating the life you desire and deserve, is so important. Because why? Everything that I'm reading, everything that I'm doing, I'm building myself up. Watching these types of videos, what are you doing? You're building yourself up. Listening to audio downloads, what are you doing? You're building yourself up. You're affirming that of who you are. You are affirming that reality that I'm a spiritual being created and made in the likeness and the image of God. And I'm continuing to eradicate and I'm building that up. Folks, it's like this. I believe it's like having a muscle. Faith is like having a muscle because, again, the converse of fear is faith. Faith is like a muscle. If I don't use this arm will be useless. Atrophy will set in and I would not be able to raise it, right? But to me, to be able to build up strength in this, that I can be able to pick up and lift and power lift, whatever, I've got to do some reps. I've got to do some hard work. I've got to be able to continue to lift, repetitively lift. Sometimes boring repetitions over and over and over again. And what happens? I begin to build muscle. And it's the same way. Folks say, oh, I know that. Well, guess what? It's not just about knowing. I've got to continue, just as it's a rep, going over, building myself up. I've got to continue to go over the scriptures. I've got to continue to go and do the other spiritual work. Why? Because that continues to affirm who I am and builds me up and reminds me. Folks, at best, the major one reason for sin, and sin is just simply missing the mark, is when we forget who in fact we are. Your fears will overtake you, will do a number on you as long as you operate in forgetting in fear and forgetting who you are and not doing the work to build you up, to remind you in fact who you are. So you've got to affirm that. That's why, again, study to show thyself to prove that a workman needeth not to be ashamed, but correctly handling the word of truth. Study. I've discovered something, folks, and in this technological age and post-modernity, people have grown so lazy. Every time I talk to people, well, you got it on audio. Why? Because there's something different about reading a book than just hearing a book. Hear me in this. When you read a book, you are engaging. You are using certain mental muscles in areas of the brain that if you don't develop them, they will go undeveloped. And I believe that one of the reasons why there's so much dementia, there's so much Alzheimer's, and I'm not talking about old people, I'm talking about people now in their 40s, is because they are not engaging the parts of their brain that they're studying. And let me share, there's a difference between studying and devotional reading. Devotional reading is important. Devotional reading is key, and I will share that. It's always good to be able to go and do devotional, but to jump into something that challenges you, where you've got to study, you've got to go and check, and you've got to use mental fortitude, that causes you to grow and to expand. Folks, don't get too old. Don't get old before your time because you just don't want to engage. Study to show thyself approved. Affirm who you are. Know who you are. Okay. The next thing is not only that type of building up in knowledge, but then you must do this. You must affirm with your words. The Bible says life and death are in the power of the tongue. And if you are dealing with fears, you've got to be able to announce and declare and decree that you are the antithesis of fear. For instance, if you are searching for love and people tell you, oh, and your fears are, you'll never find the right one, you'll never have the right experience, you've got to affirm that, know what, I am love. I'm a magnet for love. I draw loving relationships in my life. I affirm that which I am. I affirm those things to eradicate. I've been back on my workout regimen. I had a break for a minute, but I'm back on my exercise regimen. And one of the things that I do when I'm doing my morning run or my evening run, I have a tendency of affirming these things out loud. I am love. I am health. I am happiness. I am success. I am abundance. I am prosperity. I am wealth. And I share that with feeling and emotion as I am running. And why is that? Because life and death are in the power of the tongue. And when I speak forth the word, I co-create with God, and it goes forth and it creates, as he says in Isaiah 55. And your words have that same power, but you've got to affirm. Or when fears come in your mind, what do? Oh God, oh man, what am I going to do? No, you have to then affirm with your words. Speak out loud the things that you are. And it's great when you know scripture. Oh, yes, it is. See, that's why I say study to show thyself approved. It is great because when fear wells up in me, I've got to go and I say, greater is he who dwells inside of me than he that's in the world. If God be for me, he is more than the world against me. I'm created and made in the likeness and the image of God. What is man that thou art mindful of him, and the son of man that thou carest for him? For you've made him a little lower than Elohim. I continue to share those things. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not be in need. And you go and you share those and you affirm those things. And you know what? The wonderful thing about the mind is this. It can only hold one thought at a time. So even though you got all of these fear thoughts, when you start speaking it and you start saying it out loud and you start feeling that with that emotion that comes with it, because guess what? You can't speak these things without getting excited. You cannot speak these things without energy and an emotion welling up inside of you. And folks, that's the secret. Because see, when I begin to affirm, speaking it forth with my mouth, I'm beginning to feeling the emotion in my body and everything. Guess what happens? I'm programming my body. I'm programming my mind to say, this is the state I want to stay in. This is the state of being that I'm supposed to be in. That is faith, and that is has overcome my fears, and I'm moving forth in faith. Are you getting that? The next thing, I talk about our words. In affirming those words, you've also got to visualize, folks. You've got to visualize yourself being, doing, and having, overcoming those fears, and you've got to visualize with faith, and you got to visualize with emotion, and you got to visualize with all of the feeling that comes with it. I tell people all the time, it's like being in an IMAX theater. That you take your imagination and you see yourself being and doing and having in an IMAX experience. You know, in the IMAX experience, it's the screen is from the floor to the ceiling, and it's all around. And now, you know, back at Disney, where they have like the chairs that move and the wind to blow and the little water spouts that go. You should, in your visualization, should have a full experience with feeling and emotion, seeing that thing in HD, you know, the brightest colors and having the soundtrack that's playing and all. And what are you doing? You are continuing to program yourself that this is what my reality is. This is what I am supposed to be. This is who I am. And it's not the fear stuff that I play over and over my head, but this is my story. This is my movie. And I am the producer, the director. I'm the star of the show, and I've written it. And this is what I want it to be. And when you do that, you realize fear has no power over you. It has no power over you. Fear has no power over you. And you know what the next thing is? The next thing is meditation. That I meditate. Yes, and matter of fact, see how all these things work together? Visualization, meditation, affirmation, they all work together, and you can do all of them all at the same time. And as I'm meditating, meditation in Hebrew is just simply muttering or speaking forth over and over again, holding it within your mind. And we already know that our predominant thoughts create the realities that we live, that our mentality creates our reality, right? And so the more that I focus on these things, the more that I get it in my spirit, and the more that I get it in my nervous system, the more that I get it in my subconscious mind. Woo, I'm feeling it now. Now fear cannot seep in. Fear and doubt cannot come in. Why? Because my mind is so saturated. I'm feeling this thing. I am this thing, and my fears are subsided. And that's the key, folks. That's how you're able to overcome. Can I share a testimony? I operated in fear for almost a decade of my life. I was very successful as a pastor of a church in Hoffman Estates, Illinois. It was at one point it was one of the fastest growing churches in Illinois, and I was at the top of my game. I allow fear to creep in. I allow fear of success to creep in. Fear of success, man, can it get any bigger? And, if I got any bigger, will people still look at me in the same way? Will I be loved? Because our two primal fears is will people like me, and will I be loved? And I started dealing and grappling with that thing. People will look at me differently, or I won't be loved. Man, I got to the point where in listening to people and doubts coming into my mind about many things, a shift in theology, and people were telling me, oh, all these things about, was that witchcraft? Is that this and that and the other? Whatever, and allowed all of these doubts and all these things to come into my life, and it paralyzed me. It paralyzed me. I tell people about this book that I wrote in 2005. I wrote 14 Principles of Power, Faith, and Living, a spiritual guide to creating an extraordinary life. I wrote it in 3 days. 3 days, this revelation that came from God in 3 days. However, but because of doubts and fear, it stopped me from really promoting this in the way that I knew God wanted me to promote it. I allowed fear to stop me. And matter of fact, you can read all about that in Confessions of a Baptist Preacher and Lessons Learned the Hard Way, my memoir. But the point that I'm saying is that I intimately knew fear. Every morning I woke up with fear. Every night I went to bed with fear. I lived throughout my day with fear. I took lesser jobs, did lesser roles. Why? Because I was afraid of manifesting my truth, of reaching and being all that I could possibly be, until I came to these lessons of truth of how to overcome these things. And I'm telling you today, you can overcome your fears. You can create the life you truly desire and deserve. You can do that. And I want you to be able to do this. First of all, there's always something that you got to do in taking massive action. I want to be able to provide for you the tools necessary for you to create the life you desire and deserve, and to move past your fears. I want to sow into your life these 3 books that I've written for a love offering, a seed offering of $50 or more. I will sow these 3 books into your life that will give you the foundation that you need to create the life you desire and deserve, to overcome your fear. They'll give you the tools, the resources, the strategies from my own personal experience to help you get to where God wants you to be. I want you to go to my website, krlm.org now, and go ahead and plant that seed, $50 or more, and all 3 of these books. They're going to be on their way to you. Do it now. Don't delay. Do it now. And one of the worst things in the world that you can do is you can go over, look over this over and over again, and not take action. One of the things that I write is the importance of the law of massive action. And that's where you are. You may say, well, Keith, I don't have any money right now. I don't have any resources right now. Whatever you have, and I'll tell you this, or send me a little note, email me, send me a note, and you make your best, plant your best seed. And you make a faith promise to God. And I tell you what, I will respond to you in providing you these resources. So take massive action today. All right. And again, krlm.org. And again, a seed of $50 or more. I'm going to sow these into your life and ministry and world. Okay. So listen, I'm Keith Russell Lee, and those are the principles of overcoming your fears. For more information, you can go to my website. But until next time, live with faith and power and continue to create that phenomenal life. Bye now.